What's the saddest death of a video game character? Flater 420 said. Lee's death is the toughest from an intentional storytelling perspective. But Kenny's death killed me more. I always loved Kenny, as Lee, and an S2 had Clem stick by him at all times, pretty much blindly. I like him, he's my bro. He's just damaged from losing his wife and kid. But the season finale with the missing baby made me doubt myself. It took me until the last pixel of the timer, but I chose to shoot Kenny. To then have the chick tell me how she made it look like Kenny got rid of the baby because she thought he shouldn't be around downright broke my heart. I mean, throwing the controller and leaving the room levels of upset. I sat outside for ages before I was ready to finish the story from that. Tony Two Punch said. In Skyrim you find a young man who has a developmental disorder and is living inside the burnt house of his sister, who he asks the player to find. The player finds his sister's body at the bottom of a bridge. You return him a pendant and he goes pretty crazy. It hurt me especially so because I was reading Chickamauga by Ambrose Bierce at the time for class and it hurt my soul so much. The comparisons between the Civil War and those innocents lost in the senseless violence hurt so much because of how vulnerable they are. To any readers out there, if you go in with an open and empathetic mindset, reading Chickamauga can change your life. I know it did mine. Dark Knight 109 said. She gives her Chateau Romani on the last night if you've completed all the farm quests that run. I never interpreted it as getting her drunk, but more because it's a coming-of-age ritual and Creamy realizes that if they don't do it at night, Romani will never get the chance on account of them all dying when the moon crashes. Afterwards, she also asks Romani to sleep with her in her bed that night, just for an extra layer of sadness. HMMMMMMMMMMMMMMS said. Major spoilers for Portal 2. Period. Carol in Portal 2. The entire game you connect with her and finally understand where she's coming from and why she does what she does, because the AI Gladys is basically a brain tumor. At the end of the game, Gladys's mind has irreversibly been altered by its experiences as Carolyn, and it finally becomes human enough to put her out of her misery and let Shell go. The little serenade at the end makes me believe her experiences have influenced her mechanical half and Gladys is finally more than a. Ninja Fox 250 said. Yes. This really evoked memories of Amazing Spider-Man 400, where Aunt May dies, before John Byrne later shot on the issue with a painfully weak retcon. Aunt May has only a short time left, and there's nothing they can do for her. It's just her time basically. Peter takes her to the top of the Empire State Building one last time, because it was a special place for her and Uncle Ben. And when they're up there, she's enjoying the view, and just casually asks him if swinging around the way just feels like flying. And she tells him she's known for a long time, and that was why she hated Spider-Man, because she knew every time he was out there he was in danger, but she was always proud of him too. Then later back at her house, she's in bed, very weak, unable to hold on, and Peter reminds her of when she would ref Peter Pan, and Peter Pan's directions for reaching Neverland, second star to the right and straight until morning. And then tells her that's what I want you to do now, Aunt May, second star to the right and straight until morning. Her eyes close, and Peter is sobbing. And up on the roof, Ben Reilly, with all of the same memories of this woman up to a few years ago, is alone and also sobbing. Imageless KJC said. It's been over 10 years and I still think of Mordlin's death. I loathed him when I first met him, constantly convincing me to ruin my mission plans, having a superiority complex, questioning the ethics of my decisions. By the end of my time with him I was crying and had to walk away because of how impactful his death felt. 10/10 I want to see Mordlin sing again. Our Paper said. This is the answer and what made the first game so good. A father watching his daughter die in his arms, living 20 years as a bandit and a crook in a post-apocalyptic world, never getting attached to anyone, then somehow opening his heart to a random 14-year-old girl who he was asked to protect. I think the first game was the purest parental love story ever told. Shui Walker said. I knew DDLC got creepy, I had seen the Yuri scene, so I tricked my brother into playing with me. Neither of us like scary games, but if that was the worst of it, then it'd be fine. Just enough to prank him, right? We played at a time where he was basically on my own suicide watch, constantly. I had tried multiple times and stopped at the last second type deal. So we're playing the intro and it's great. Having some laughs, enjoying the story, I know that it's gonna get a tiny bit spooky and it'll be hilarious. We both silently notice Sayori's signs being a little weird and a bit too realistic. Then the fake out happens when you check on her and she's okay still. I say yes to Sayori's confession, knowing it's about to be the turning point. The scene begins and we both know exactly where it's going. You open the door and you're going to find her dead somehow, right? That one dialogue starts and as I go to say maybe we should stop, the jump scare happens. Usually we're okay to shake things off. We were legitimately and genuinely traumatized for about 2 weeks each. He didn't hear the sound effects, but Sayonara still gives me anxiety to this day years later. I'm pretty sure my brother is a changed person entirely. I have never felt so bad about causing someone so much distress in my life. He wouldn't ever say it to not doubt the burden on me, but I know this is what he felt was going to happen to me. The same thing the main character felt in the following dialogue, that I could have saved her. This is my fault. I can never go back. Never. Haunted him for a while. Will never touch that piece of shit game again, but it does earn my respect as the most effective and terrifying thing to ever exist. Nastirat 666 said. Spoilers for Danganronpa, THH. Chapters 2, 3 and 4 specifically. Mondo Owata. First off, he didn't even have a real motive or reason for killing Chihiro besides him just losing control of himself. No need to mention the fact that Taka repeatedly refused to vote for Mondo and tells the class to vote for him instead. The entire Chapter 2 trial is fucked up, considering Byakuya altered Chihiro's body for fun. And Taka and Mondo have had a growing relationship to this point, and Mondo dying was a big part of Taka's ultimate downfall in Chapter 3. With Chihiro, Mondo and Taka being some of my favorite characters, this whole chapter ripped me up inside. Also from THH, Sakura Agami. Up until Chapter 4, she hadn't had much effect in the story, but we knew she was extremely likable and most likely wouldn't get killed or kill anybody. Until Monokuma reveals the whole Sakura is a spy thing. Sakura then kills herself for the group, and it really fucked with my heart. Aoi and Sakura had a super strong friendship, and like with Taka in Chapter 2, Aoi tries convincing the group that she killed Sakura. Obviously, nobody believes it, but it just goes to show how heartbroken Aoi is over losing her friend for almost no reason. LifeAd 3092 said. I wholeheartedly agree due to the apparent torment it hit everyone with. With most video game characters you see them perish and then remember later on that oh, they're just game characters, none of this could happen in the near future or in real life. And then move on with a vague imprint of that death, still sort of reminiscing but getting used to it. But Sayori is the realest of all. Rather than being some gruesome and random death, breadcrumbs of mental depression and anxiety is littered here and there, and if you properly take the time to learn and bond with her, you see she is written realistically, and her depression stems from a number of literal reasons that happen in this day and age almost every day. And not only that, her death was by a realistic means, and if you properly look to her, she struggled but died mercilessly by her own hands. Her death still shakes me due to the realism it portrays, and how dark it truly is compared to a lot of other deaths that just end with a random heroic moment. There is no heroic moment to make you feel somewhat bittersweet. She died, and there's nothing you can do to save her. Smidge0 said. For me personally, 2 Hollow Knight deaths made me really sad. Disclaimer, comment will have spoilers about a side character and the end boss. First there is Quirrell, a warrior who is driven by curiosity and loves to uncover the mysteries of Hallownest. He feels like something or someone calls for him and he's there because he wants to know what's calling for him. After he finds out why he's here, you get to meet him at the Blue Lake where he will talk to you one last time. His voice sounds old and it seems like he grew years older in a very short time. When you revisit the Blue Lake, all you can find left of him is his trusty sword. He either drowned himself because he didn't have a purpose anymore or something else happened, but he's dead either way. Secondly, the end boss is quite sad in HK. When you fight the Hollow Knight, he begins crying out in agony and starts stabbing himself. Most people would think he's just stabbing himself to unleash more of his power, because he gets new moves after doing so, but in reality he wants to die. He doesn't want to suffer anymore. He knows he failed at what he had to do and just wants you to win. It's hard to understand if you don't know the lore of HK, but holy crap, when I listen to the track of the end boss now, the phase where he starts stabbing himself brings tears in my eyes. Here's the exact music that plays when he enters his last phase. LifeAd 3092 said. Yeah, those were moderately upsetting, but it depends on how well you know them. If it's your first run and you kill them, it's less impactful as all you saw was a whiny skeleton with an ego problem, yet hints of a heart of gold, and potentially if they did full genocide, a nihilistic yet caring brother. If you played pacifist or even neutral however, it's more upsetting when you see they were decently made and shown as people, and when you kill them and see what they say and do. KTS upsetting then. MilB86 said, "Do you know how hard it is to get that damn perfect ending? 120 hours dedicated only to find out that I messed up by not talking to some stupid rando on the stupid pier and it was too late. That dialogue was gone and a perfect ending was now impossible to achieve. Had to restart the whole damn thing. Ooh. Yes. I'm still pissed." Pringles Camp said, "I'm surprised I didn't see anyone say this one, but Eli Vance from Half-Life 2, Episode 2. Seeing as he's the head of the Resistance in that game, his death makes it look quite hopeless for them. It's a massive hit for them, and they will not recover from it easily. Secondly, Alex's reaction to the death of her father as the credits play really hits you deep. Up until this point, she was brave, tough, and able and willing to take on anything that was thrown at her. But she was also shown to care deeply for her father, and having him taken away is a difficult thing to deal with. Her reaction is understandable and relatable. Finally, by the end of Episode 2, it is established that Eli really respects Gordon, the player, and sees him as a son figure in his life. Just before then, he had a heart-to-heart with Gordon, expressing his feelings about the tragedy that happened before. Getting this close to him and then seeing his death is a real punch in the gut." Megascrub22 said, "In the game Dust, an Elysium tale where you enter a town called Mudpot and meet a family the father of which is horribly sick. The water that normally runs through the town is stopped and is the only thing that could heal him, so you fight the boss, get the water running and head back and met by their son who greets you and is super happy that his dad is saved. Then the mother comes out and asks the kid to come inside. You follow them and it is revealed that you were too late after doing everything you can to save them. It just wasn't enough and the main character's reaction crushed me. A mix of pain and anger at the fact that he did everything he could and it still wasn't enough." Low in Confidence 14 said, "In Call of Duty World at War, there are two deaths which are kinda sad. One is Chernov, the Soviet soldier, and I just felt sorry for him because he didn't really want to fight and didn't see the point of it all and he won't ever go back home. But in some ways, it might be good for him because he hated seeing the war crimes you may or may not commit and I guess it means it won't be in his memory forever. The other one is Roebuck, the American soldier. I mean, Polanski can also die, depends on which one you save. But it's sadder with Roebuck, because he helped you and led you to victory but just falls short at the end. Plus, he's more supportive and Polanski just moans all the time." Dorsalt said, "Hinoa and Claus in Mother 3. Hinoa's death looms over everything in Mother 3. It's the reason Claus goes looking for revenge and goes missing. Lucas is reminded of it throughout the game, and you really understand his grief through the silent cutscenes that play, especially in Chapter 6. For those who haven't played Mother 3, here's what happens in Chapter 6. Spoilers from here onwards. Chapter 5 ends with Lucas and company hanging from the ladder of an aircraft, only for a masked man to emerge and cause the party to fall. Lucas and his dog Boney fall into a field of sunflowers, the favorite of his mother Inoa. As you walk Lucas through the field, he is reminded of his mother and you see flashbacks from his childhood. An apparition of Inoa appears before Lucas, and you follow it to a cliff where Lucas reaches out and attempts to grab her, only to fall off. The scene really tugs at the heartstrings. Claus, however. Claus's death is a whole different beast. Remember that masked man from earlier? Yup, that's Claus." Dorsalt said, "In Mother 3, animals have been reconstructed and fused together to become Chimera. At the end of the game it is revealed that it was Porky, one of the main villains from Mother 2, Earthbound, that was behind everything and your father Flint finds out that Claus was turned into a human chimera that would carry out Porky's demands. The final battle of Mother 3 is between Claus and Lucas, however, it isn't really a fight. While Claus is relentlessly attacking Lucas, Lucas refuses to retaliate when you select attack and will sometimes start to cry. Eventually, you start to hear Hina's voice. This startles Claus at first but after a few turns Inoa gets through to him. He removes his mask, and you see your twin brother's face for the first time in 4 years. Claus fires an intense bolt of lightning that reflects off of Lucas's Franklin badge, killing himself. I feel like the best way to really sell the emotion of what happens next is to just quote it, or you can watch the whole thing here. Keep in mind that all of this is conveyed through text. The screen goes wide after Claus fires his lightning bolt. Claus staggered toward Lucas. Claus embraced Lucas. Lucas remembered Claus's smell. Claus, I'm sorry it turned out like this. I'm happy you could be with me just before the end. Thanks, Dad. Dorsalt said, I'm sorry I didn't listen to you. I'm going to where Mom is now. Lucas, I hope we meet again someday. Bye. Thank you. Claus gave his final breath. I cry every single time I play this game. Pug Hug Yu said, take your pick from almost any of the Dark Souls bosses. Gwyn, the Lord of Cinders, a half-dead god, trying to force a dying world to continue simply to maintain a reign of meaningless glory, only to be killed by a nobody, some worthless hollow who happened to be good enough at the mindless slaughter of foes to emerge victorious. Ihorm, the giant? Afraid to die again, afraid that he won't be strong enough to link himself to the fire just as before, hiding in the throne room of his crumbling city, until he finally meets his end at the hands of a good friend with a promise to keep. Osiris, a consumed king, so foolishly drawn to a power he cannot understand, spending his last moments in life searching for a scared and confused child to no avail. His fits of rage in this fight are his last. Everyone in Dark Souls is fated to die, and each death is meaningful and, in one way or another, sad. Bean Eater now said, very famously, Sola Irvastora, Dark Souls. But not as well known in pop culture, the entire family you destroy in Bloodborne. Quick synopsis: you find a little girl in a window, both her parents are missing. You eventually find Dad, apparently driven mad, possibly at the realization that Mom was recently killed. You kill Dad. Next step, bring back proof that they are dead to the girl. But fear not, a church is nearby that offers safety. She is eaten by rhinoceros-sized pig in a sewer on the way to the church. You find her hair tie, and bring it back to her house where you find out she is a sister. Not for long though, because sister throws herself to her own death off a cliff shortly after. The gay boy said, for me it's Yusuf from AC, Revelations. They introduce him at the beginning, he becomes the best guy in the game, and then he dies protecting your future wife. After that, you raise every goddamn assassin in Istanbul to fight. One of my favorite quotes from Ezio. Brothers, sisters, the whole city rises against us, while Yusuf's murderer is hiding in the arsenal, laughing. I swear to God that mission is an emotional wreckage. Loquacious Labrador said. Malik from Deus Ex. She's an optional death, but the way it's presented makes it seem like it isn't. She's ferried you to every mission, providing friendly chit-chat and sometimes a welcome rescue from dangerous missions. Then suddenly you're shot down and surrounded by a massive wave of enemies with Malik telling you to run while she's stuck in the vehicle. If you listen and leave, you get to hear her struggle before she's killed, which is very upsetting. She's done nothing but be a friendly face for you after all. However, if you ignore her and engage the enemies fast enough to prevent a certain amount of damage to the ship, she survives. There's a unique achievement for it as well, Good Soul, which I think goes to show how it really was intended to be a difficult and tragic situation. Some random hobo once said. My dude James from State of Decay 2. He was the first person we let join our crew. Found him at an old house. Getting overrun by a horde of Z's. The rest of his conclave had fallen, but we managed to save him. He didn't have any special skills, but he was always willing to risk his life for the crew. It was just supposed to be a simple vehicle pickup. In and out. But he got swarmed by a roaming horde of blood plague Z's. He barely got out of there alive. But he picked the wrong building to hide in. He didn't even have time to bandage his wounds before the feral zombie took him out. Beelzebub Party said. Even though it happened before the games take place, I think the kids from the FNAF games deserve at least an honorable mention. These kids were taken from their parents by a deceitful man dressed as one of their childhood icons and promised them it'll all be okay. They were then brutally murdered in a back room, all alone, begging for help, and yet nobody came. They were then brutally forced into an animatronic suit, forever tied to the place that they died in a decrepit and horrifying state, away from family, friends and anything else they loved about their old home. Imagine the terror you would feel, to be a child who was just having fun and then you get brutally murdered and wake up in a new body that's horrifying and cold and mechanic. You'd have a total breakdown. At least the kids got to have their revenge in the end and are finally at peace now. Swinging Nutsack Hayami said. Personally, Rhyme from the World ends with you, after she jumped in to save her partner from being eaten by a monster, although touchingly she is revived at the end of the game. Then it is later revealed she had saved her partner in the same way he had saved her from being hit by a car in their past lives. Then it was revealed that her partner was actually her older brother, but by entering the Reaper's game she had lost all memory of him, yet she still felt compelled to risk her chances of being resurrected to keep him from being erased. Obese Sun said. So liar, he was always there for you, so bright and cheery, no pun intended, and he'll even help you take on Gwen to complete your journey and lick the fire, but none of that will happen if you don't kill the parasites. It really hurts to see what happens, especially when he really helped when I was trying to learn the game with some of the harder fights, and then to see him go crazy because I couldn't save him really hurt. Also Sigmir of Katarina, who can either die a warrior's death, fighting alongside you in the depths of Lost Izalith, or can go hollow, causing his daughter to have to put him down day after day, because he was never able to be the hero he desired to be, because you always swooped in and saved the day, killed the monster and got the glory. Also Cade 6 Fuck the Scorn. Cade was the best, may rest in peace. G59 Tilth the Grave said. Carlos from Saints Row 2. He was a very likable character, and he even helps you escape from prison. He gets captured by a rival gang and dies a very excruciating death. He gets chained to the back of a truck and gets dragged across the road. The mission where this all unfolds kinda foreshadows what happens, hence the name Red Asphalt. The boss, aka Playa, the protagonist of the entire series, excluding Gad out of hell, tries to break him free, but she can't, so she puts him out of his misery. There's a zombie version of him, and he looks all sorts of fucked up. He has a huge hole in his head, exposing his brain and his skull. He's also drenched in blood. Palea said. Okay, I'm going to get a lot of hate from this one, but Edelgard from Fire Emblem Three Houses. I see her as such a tragic figure, a flawed individual who had been tortured for most of her child life and is forced to wage a war alongside the very same people who tortured her. When looking into her supports with other characters, she alludes to the idea that not only does she feel like her classmates' friend's professor will not support her, but also almost sees herself as the bad guy in her own story. She sees injustice and knows that lives will be lost in this fight, and really does mourn them as she progresses through her story. Not only that, but if fought against, she accepts the fact that she will either have to kill the people she loves, or be killed herself. The thing that really destroys me is how her deaths happen. In Azure Moon, despite Dimitri offering peace, she instead essentially chooses suicide, as she feels that there is no turning back for her. By attacking Dimitri's shoulder, a non-vital part of his body, he reacts by stabbing her through the heart, killing her instantly. In the other two routes, Edelgard asks for an honorable death, and before Byleth offers the killing blow, Edelgard simply states, "I wanted to walk with you," in such a heart-wrenching performance by her VA Tara Plant that honestly sounds like she not only cared for Byleth deeply, but may have loved her as well. Trying Leon said. I was going to say Arthur Morgan because, well, who wouldn't? One of the best video game protagonists in history. Though I'm going to throw my hat and say that Big Boss death in MGS4 hit me the most. I think most people hated this scene when the game first came out, and I was one of them. It feels unnecessary and stupid, or at least that's what I thought. When I look more into Kojima as a person, I learned that he lost his father at a young age, and looking at his games you see how this impact hit him. Death Stranding might as well be his magnum opus with this theme in mind. We see many characters within Metal Gear that have struggling father relationships. Huey committed suicide, Solidus made Jack a proxy for war, and Big Boss, well, you know the story. But this one moment where Snake and Big Boss meet, you think, oh fuck, he's back, quick Snake shoot him, but then he disarms you and hugs you. For the first time, Big Boss treats Snake like his son and tells him to live his life. You don't have fight anymore, be free. Snake even gives him a cigar before he dies and gets to have his first and final smoke with his pops. And if you think this is sad, the motion capture is even sadder. The Japanese voice actors and motion captors for Big Boss and Snake are father and son. They haven't been on good grounds with each other, But once they filmed this scene, you see the tension wither away. It's not just multi-polygonal grandpas talking about memes and shit in a cemetery for half an hour straight. It's a genuine heart-to-heart between a father and his son. And if that ain't sad, then I don't know what is. This is good. Isn't it? Big Boss.